I was holding the phone landline like this, AJ, and it came down the phone line. It hit me in the side of the head. It went down my spine, and it welded the nails of the shoes, my bass weegens, to the nails in the floor, which grounded me. And that threw me out of my shoe and up into the wall, up to the ceiling, and I could see it, but I'm burning, and everything was burning. And then I lifted out of my body. I came into this a silvery ethereal place. So I went to this Crystal City, and Crystal City, because the only thing I could describe it, AJ, as nobody ever dies, and you're not going to die. It's funny. And everybody that you're missing or that you think's missing you, they're there.
The AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
Okay, Danny, you are one of the first near-death experiencers who stepped out of the closet and told the world about your experience. This was 50 years ago. And you were also one of Dr. Raymond Moody's first patients.
Raymond had other cases. It was Vi and Andy. And Andy was a guy that caught onto an electrical pole and it blew off both his legs and his right arm. And there was Vi, who had had a heart attack, typical housewife, and we were there. I mean, it would be sitting at Raymond's and Louise's, and we would be sitting there, and we'd be looking at it and talking about it.
So I would like to go back 50 years. So you are on the phone, lightning strikes. What happens?
I was holding the phone landline like this, AJ, and it came down the phone line. It hit me in the side of the head. It went down my spine, and it welded the nails of the shoes, my bass weegens, to the nails in the floor, which grounded me. And that threw me out of my shoes and up into the wall, up to the ceiling, and I could see it, but I'm burning. And then this ball of fire comes across the room and burns my eyes. And then I hit the bed. I'm paralyzed. I cannot move. I could barely breathe, but I couldn't see where I was. And it was like I was drinking battery acid. I was burning. Everything was burning. And I couldn't move. I utter panic. And then I lifted out of my body. I lifted out of my body. I had the panoramic life review. I watched what all that was. Okay. And then I went down a tunnel. And then I came place where I came into a silvery ethereal place. I could see I wasn't on frickin' fire, and I could move. And where I left from to get to there, I could not see. I could not move. I could not handle it. I couldn't handle it. To this place, I meet this being, and this being gives me the comfort that everything's okay. Like, a lot of times it'd probably be a family member, but I would probably be too obsessive compulsive if it was a family member. So I went to this Crystal City, because the only thing I could describe it, AJ, as when you see something like that, and you can see many others crystal past, it's like Disneyland, but it's made out of glass. When you see so many more of them instead of just one, and I was going to one of them. And when you see that and you sense the expansiveness of who you are, and all that stuff you'd ever been taught or thought was complete, total nonsense. And most of the religious stuff that we listen to some of it's really, really good, but the premises of it is nonsense. Nonsense. We are spiritual beings. And so when I got into the Crystal City, I'm looking, and it's all about harmonics and frequencies. And you can see the frequencies where I think in this dimension, in this physical dimension here, you can't see them, but where I was, you could see the frequencies, and you could see it emanating. And then these 13 beings appeared. Okay. There were 12 in front of me, and to the right was the 13th being. And it put out an energy. I don't know how to, I'm trying to think of how I felt. This just worried me, or I thought about this for years. When I felt what these glowing being was about, I was not humble or bowing my head or any of that. I was observing it from what I felt. I mean, I felt like integrity. I felt like, that it was the truth. And, I always wondered if that was deception or whether it was, that it was occurring that way. And so as the 13th being would designate a being, and it wasn't in order, the being would lighten and brighten, and until that was all I saw. It was just that one being in me. And then this, I call it a box or like a laptop. I can't, I don't know what else to say, came at me. And all of a sudden I was in these places. And it was different from where I left because I was paying attention. I wasn't breathing, but I was paying attention to that I should have been breathing. Okay. And I'm watching these events. All right. And when each one of them, there would become these hints of these things about what it meant. Well, when the being said, if you keep doing the same thing you've been doing, war, and this is the Vietnam War, these are the possibilities of the future. So that stayed in my mind the whole time. That those boxes, because they were real, would smell and taste and touch and like physically being a part of it, as opposed to that ethereal place.
Can you talk about the life review that you had?
AJ, that's the most important aspect of the near-death experience. Instead of all that dogma and all that talk and all that punishment and all of that, the universe is fair and just. The panoramic life review. You will see your entire life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama. You'll watch it from a second-person point of view as though you were your own best friend. And then you will become every person that you've ever encountered, and you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. And when you see that reaction, okay, you are startled, and it was about the reason. It wasn't what I did, yelled at them, hit them in the face, knocked their books down, who cares? It was, why was I doing it? And so my whole life since that was the first first death experience and the life review, you have to remember, I have had 3 of those. And the worst part about the panoramic life review is this. It doesn't pick up where you left off every time I've been dead. Of the 3 times I've been dead, it doesn't in between near-death experiences, okay? It doesn't garner as much reality as it doesn't garner as much reality is the fact that it should state that we don't die. And then we have to establish who we are. And the life review makes you face yourself. You are the judge of you, and you're going to look at your life, and you're going to have a 3-way to look at it. From seeing it yourself, having like a best friend, someone caring and loving, that can tell you you're dumb or tell you you're smart, and then you're going to have to face it. And somewhere in all of that will come a question. And this is a way I say it. That if God couldn't come today and God sent you, in the life review you just had, what difference did you and God make? Well, as painful as it was, because I was such a tough guy, it was, I looked at it from what I had just learned, and then I was in the Marine Corps, and I decided to become a hospice volunteer for dying veterans. because I figured that what I knew then and what I understood about the relationship between me and other people who served in the Corps or in military, I could be there for them and help them. So the most important thing that people should take from the near-death experience is that panoramic life review, because that's the only thing that's over there that you can bring back as a useful tool for over here. The day I could get up and walk and to be myself was about 2 years. And then I became a hospice volunteer. And I think that means I've been a hospice volunteer now for 48 years. 2017 people. And 358 taking their last breath. And I
Wow.
built one of the largest end-of-life care volunteering programs for dying veterans in American history. I live in death. I live there every day on the phone, going to see somebody. It's not something that's odd or some study I did. I met my 2018th hospice person, Mark.
Amazing. So during those 2 years that you were from 1975 to 1977 approximately, that you were in your bed, confined to your bed, what did you think about this experience? You still didn't know about these phenomena, right?
I had no idea. I mean, this is a 25-year-old tough guy, football player. Okay. And lying in that bed, I was peeing on myself and crapping on myself and rolling off on the floor. And I had to figure out how to roll myself off on the floor, put change of clothes in case I couldn't make it to the bathroom that's 10, 12 steps away. And I lived like that. And I could crawl and get in a chair. And it would take me 3 hours to get in that rocking chair, but I'd get in that rocking chair. And I'd put my foot down and I would work that rocking chair so that I could get muscles because they hurt. Oh, God. And so I would do everything. And at the same time, I couldn't get away from how impactful this experience was. But AJ, I would travel. I would be in that chair, and it didn't happen until I got into the chair where I could find some kind of rhythm. You know, I could play Stephen Halpern, and I could find some kind of rhythm. And in that rhythm, I would go places. I would dimensionally travel. I mean, you know, and I have no control over it, none. And I would go in these places and they looked like things that were expansions. They looked like things that were expansions of so many of the things I had seen in the visions from the beings of light. You know, that there was so much more, showing me so much more about it, like it's me gathering information for something. Because the point where my whole existence has been my conspiratorial side is I believe that the battle for the souls of humankind will be fought in healthcare. And I think that right there is the place where all the real traps for those that's not for what this specific system is used for its greater good.
During those first 2 years, did you tell anyone about what you had experienced?
What was I gonna tell them? That I was dead and I knew I was a spiritual being and I knew I was chosen to come here and I chose to come here. I never talked about it. I mean, Sandy, my girlfriend, I mean, you know, they'd be brief little, but I had no way to grip it. I had no way, no place, no way around it. Okay. And then I was always associating it with the kind of pain that I still live in till this day. I still live in. But this is a spiritual being, not this body. Okay. So when I look at it from that point of view, each of these times, dead and years in open heart surgery, the damage done inside of me from from being light and what it burned up inside, and then brain surgery, then open heart surgery. Never been given a chance to live or live long ever. So I know I'm not this body. And worrying about thinking of how connected you are to this body is the trap that will befall all of us, just like we watched with this last pandemic.
When did you start telling other people about your death experience and everything you learned?
After Raymond,
Oh, so Raymond was basically the first person you told your experience to.
he asked the right question. It wasn't me telling him experience, because half of those words or languages, I mean, here we are, AJ, we're 50 years later. I can articulate it a lot better now than I could then. You know, this is a 75-year-old, not a 25-year-old. But I have to look at it from that 25-year-old viewpoint so I don't miss anything.
How did you meet Raymond?
He had read about me in the newspaper. I was like a, tough guy, football player, all that stuff when you grow up in a small town of nowhere. And I was just learning to walk. It's probably been a year. It's probably been about a year. And it was in the newspaper that he was at some university and school, and I figured I could make it. So Sandy and I went over there, and I got in and I sat down. And the way he composed the questions. Remember, nobody had ever heard of the near-death experience until Raymond wrote Life After Life. And he coined that term. That was 1975. Look, all this is happening right then. And then Raymond, on the Mockingbird, wrote Life After Life. And then I had this experience. This September's 50 years. So all of that's coming. And I was lucky enough because Raymond asked the right questions. And the philosophical way that he framed the near-death experience in that first time that I saw him in late 76 or 77, when I saw him, it was wonderful, because we would sit and have these questions, and I was trying to figure out what in the heck had happened to me. And the way Raymond structured those questions was comforting. And it was a philosopher exploring philosophy, not a doctor exploring physics. Okay. Right. And it was a wonderful interaction.
What kind of questions was he asking? And was he asking the audience or was he asking you directly?
Well, after I met him, I walked up to him and told him, I said, I've had one of these experiences. Okay, I've had one of these experiences, and I thanked him for the accuracy of how he had phrased it. I had it. I had gone through it. Okay, and it didn't have a name, and I was searching and going crazy and reading Bibles and everything that I could do lying in that freaking bed. And so he came over. He would come over because I couldn't go far. And I could get in a rocking chair, and I had a rocking chair. I love rocking chairs, so I think I had 2 or 3 rocking chairs. So Raymond and I would sit in those 2 rocking chairs, and we would frame the way the near-death experience operates. How does it operate? Trying to create a boundaries for people to measure it. And then philosophy, and it was just wonderful. And I was always studying the panoramic life review because for me, the most impactful thing is me having to face myself. You're going to be every person that you ever encounter, and you're going to feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. So always be positive, or always be caring, or always be one step positioned away from it so it's not going to affect you. That's how I look at stuff, because if you do it from looking at that point of it, it never gets to you or affects you or bothers you. The world's crazy, AJ, and it's all our fault. And when it came time that it had to be promoted, it had to be put out there, Rame a lot of times needed some persuasion. So I was like Louise's muscle. And that's a long time ago.
So you actually went with him, you toured with him.
20 years.
Wow.
Drove it as hard and as far and as fast as I could, because without people stopping long enough to look at this thing, if they just look at the probabilities, the standard things that usually happen, it's usually resuscitation. It's heart. Okay. And then either resuscitation or short term in resuscitation, but that's the person, you coming in and out of the body. Then when you start to look at it, then there's a whole nother way based on the proliferation of the studies and of the near-death experience. I had this thing when it didn't have a name, and I was dead. I mean, I wasn't near dead. I was dead. Okay, so the other ones, open heart surgery, I'm near death in it. Brain surgery, I'm near death in it. Open heart surgery, I'm near death in it. But in the end of open heart surgery, coming out of the hospital surgery, I was in cardiac arrest because they had just cut me open again, and all the scar tissue and blah, 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 blah. And they had to resuscitate me. And then 4 days after the surgery, on a Sunday morning at 2 a.m., I went into cardiac arrest. And they had to resuscitate me. I didn't go anywhere, AJ. I'd come out of my body. It came out of my body really, really fast. And I was standing there watching the nurses, calmly watching the nurses, and watching the little cardiologist, and watching them yell and pumping and hit me on my chest. I watched the nurses who took shifts. They would only do it in so many shifts because of the pressure. And I watched that, and I saw the strong young nurse came, and she had a rhythm to it. She had a rhythm. And then I felt myself coming back in. And what was amazing, I was coming in slowly, and I could see what appears to be like cloaks. It's like a see-through Band-Aid or something. And I put on these 7 cloaks. And that all reminded me of when I went down the tunnel in 1975. There was a series of 7 tones, and I've hunted them on pianos and hunted and looked for those tones, because that was the nature of the sound of how you travel in the death experience or the near-death experience.
After your life review, you met with 13 beings, and who told you about the future? You saw many predictions that have come true, but you also received the information about future events, a possible third world war, and a possible outcome for Earth if humanity does not make a shift. Can you talk about that?
In 1977, AJ, 1977, when I could finally write, I had to write it down. It was in 2 spiral nifty notebooks. And I wrote this series in. Okay, when I wrote these series in, they were things that I could put down as a chronologue of what it was. And then when Paul and I got together, we were looking at it and figuring out what kind of boxes we were going to put it into sections and boxes and group them together. What's wonderful thing about Paul is Paul's ability to look at how for the reader what goes in what box. Because like right now it says that can't quote it, but there's a section in there about how the world is turning on Gaza. I mean, this was all 50 years ago, 48 years ago. And Paul and I put it in a book that we wrote 30 years ago. 30 years ago. We wrote a couple of them. It was Raymond who told the world about the boxes of knowledge. It wasn't me.
Yes. So in these prophecies or predictions, you mentioned that
Probable possibilities of the future, AJ.
great. These probable possibilities of the future present like a crossroads. Either we go to World War III, or we reach a new age of spiritual awakening. Does that sum it up?
Without any question. And that's not a coming event. They're in Europe today, and in Russia today, anybody who's my age, anybody who's been through all of this and can look at the basic news, we're in a war footing. And it's easy. You can watch maritime air flights. It's all on the internet. And watch movement, and we're on a war footing. And why? Our failure to pay attention to who we spiritually are and how pharmaceutical and control is bring us to bring us to the point that we think we're going to die. That is the craziest thing that anybody can possibly think, AJ. It's nuts.
This is like an ancient knowledge that has been known since the beginning of time.
And suppressed. But once you start down that path of control, manipulation, and like where we are now, a world war tends to set itself up. So just like Paul and I wrote in Saved, these scenarios would come to be at the place to make sure everybody needed to pay attention, that the way that they've been doing it has failed. We have failed. And if we look at it from the Mayan point of view, which Paul and I, we look at it from that point of view, that means in December 21st, 2012, a new period began, and that means we'd be in the 13th or 14th time in that period. With 50 years of near-deathers, pseudo-near-deathers, and deathers. And the fact that in those early years, I mean, I was one of those people along with Raymond. And I mean, in the early days, I can remember me, Vi, and Andy, and Raymond developing the way he was going to approach it as a philosopher, and he was going to medical school. Those were wonderful times.
So after all these 50 years, what is the legacy?
3 things. The cultural legacy of the near-death experience. Number 1, you do not die. And no matter what anyone tells you or why they tell you you're going to die, what's going to be waiting for you or happening for you when you die, other than a near-death experience, is foolish. Number 2, 95% of everyone who ever has a real near-death experience, they say they float above their body, which is true. I have done this. They say that you are detached, floating above, looking down at your body. Well, the most amazing point, AJ, about reality is at that point, people had an opportunity to realize they are not that body. And if they are not that body, what consciousness was looking down? That is the secret of people and how people understand who they are dimensionally within this dimension. Okay, that's the secret. And then number three, we are all electrical beings, and I say spiritual beings, but we are all electrical beings. And to look at yourself as an electrical being and to look at the things that are valued to you from electrically, let's take like this. How many times a day does your heart beat? 94 to 104,000 times. Then what makes that heart beat? It takes 0.45 milliamps or close of electricity to cause that heart to beat. So that means 100,000 times a day, your body is producing electricity from what's going on within the structure of that body so that heart will beat. And when people stop, AJ, and look at themselves from that point of view in every reality, then there is a transformation. And then second and equal to that is the panoramic life review. When a person has to go through what the life review is, becoming every person that you've ever encountered and watching and seeing your whole life pass before you in a panorama, and you watching every single detail and going through it, and then watching it from a second person point of view, and then from there becoming every person that you've ever encountered, and to feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. You become them, and you feel what they feel, not what you intended, but what they feel. So the most important factor that all of us have to learn today is our intention in every action that we take is so measured and so precise that we become foolish in how much attention we pay to intention we apply to our actions. When you look at the cultural legacy, what is the cultural legacy? Which is why I say that cultural legacy is if you had good sense and you had a fairly rational mind and you cared about your health and you cared about yourself. Those are two completely different people. Caring about you, that's this body, and caring about yourself, that's you in this body. Then everybody begins to look at it like it truly is. Let me tell you something, AJ.
Okay.
Let me tell you a little secret, right? Death doesn't scare me and nothing about it. I live in it all the time. I mean, I have a close relationship with death. We're buddies, okay? Because I know and understand exactly how it works. So when you're dealing with it and you're understanding, it only enhances what your spiritual identity is. Hospice work is spiritual identity because it's like serving something that cannot serve you back. And in the course of that relationship between you and that person in transition, you get to a place to feel a certain amount of divinity within yourself quietly. I like hospice work because I've been doing it for 48 years. Nobody ever dies, and you're not going to die. It's funny. And everybody that you're missing or that you think's missing you, they're there. It's all crazy. All that other stuff is nonsense. It's nonsense. And so when you experience that and you understand how important you are, how utterly and absolutely who you are and what you're doing on this earth is important. That's what it teaches you. It's important. Ask anybody who's ever had one. The first thing you listen to when they tell you their story is the first thing you listen to is the impact of facing themselves.
Now, 50 years later, you are working on the Brinkley Center, What are you doing exactly with that project?
I'm having more fun than I've probably had in my entire life, because I get to sit in one place and every day work on it. There was always a program. Anybody who read Secrets of the Light knew there was a final vision. They knew there was a final vision. And so to be able to stop in my life as an old man, as just as a guy, and to come and sit and be able to build the same thing that Raymond and I did in the 90s before I was famous anyway. It's just Raymond and I experimenting. I mean, we would, I had this experience. Raymond knew the depth of the experience, and a couple of other scientists, he knew the depth of my understanding of how it operated and how it worked. It is a methodology to this thing. Dying is mapped out, and how you do it and why you do it is mapped out. And when people understand that, they just fill in the blanks. And if it's their time, it's their time. It's not all this confusion and craziness that we deal with in end of life care every day. 66 cents of every dollar in health care is spent in the last 6 months of life to extend life, an average of 16 freaking days here in America. It's 50 years later, AJ. Did I keep my word? If I said nobody dies, well, then it would have been easy to map what I would be doing. I wrote it in a book. It's called Chapter 5. And when we were going to publish that book, Paul came to me and he said, Dan, he said, they want to take the boxes of knowledge out. I said, no way. I said, this is a part of the story, Paul. He said, well, some of the things that you said, because this was 18 years later, the dates I gave as future events in 1977. Okay, these are 77 dates. And then now I'm in the 90s. And he said, it's too close. He said, because one of these could go wrong. I said, well, Paul, here's what I'll tell you. If these things come true, as we put them in this book, the best that I could remember, and they come true, it means there's a life after death. And that's one more cornerstone that people can hold on to, that the probable possibilities of the future, which we all are contributed to, are structured that way. Okay, then it's the way you look at this life and how it does and whatever those meanings are. And that by creating that way to view it is the whole nature of what the near-death experience is about. What is the number one cause of near-death experiences? Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. They bringing you back. And everything they telling you was going to be and didn't exist and wasn't going to happen and it's not that way. It is. You think somebody's going to tell me? Please. I spent 42 years in the VA, in the hospice volunteer. And I worked in Washington Hospice, in Washington Hospital VA in Washington, D.C. So I watched how it all operates and how it works, and why it's so important that people take a good grip on where they are in their lives today for two reasons. Many of us are going to be leaving for a lot of reasons. And we have to be caregivers, and we have to pay attention to be caregivers for caregivers. People need to take care of themselves as they're going to go through losing relatives and friends and children. And this is all was going to happen if we kept doing the same thing we always was doing. And since Vietnam, look how many wars we've been through and look at what we've done. So we have not changed. It has not changed. So At that point, you just pay attention to your health care. You look at what you need and how you have to have it, what it needs to be, and all those things that matter. And then next, you learn to appreciate your breathing. When a person stops and realizes the greatest single gift that the divine has given you is the autonomic system of need for breath. Because if you did not breathe autonomically, what would be more important to you than the next breath? And there lies your greatest gift, that moment of hesitation in how you look at this. So then if that's true, you would see the sanctity of air, the sanctity of how it moves in and out of you. And then as you pay attention to that and you open your mind and your heart, then you enter a place where what air represents is the divine moving in with you, and then your actions and intents moving out as an energy field. But people need to always remember this. They're half a breath away from wherever they think the next step is. And if it's death, you're half a breath away. And if you think you are that body, try this. When that breath goes out of that body, you leave also. And every chemical, every muscle, every bone, every hair fragment, all the moisture in your retina, everything's right there. Everything it takes to make that body work, except you, because you never freaking worked it. So when people grasp that from the near-death experience and from us, we who tell these stories, AJ, I'm just living this, then that option in life has to become a reality.
I think the best takeaway, or the most important, are the three main truths that you mentioned. You will never die, you are not your body, and you are an electrical being.
Which makes you have a way to look at yourself spiritually. You can't tell people stuff. You can't tell people stuff, AJ, without making it a smooth transition. I mean, the greatest tool I have is people's cell phones to teach them about their spirituality. I can wear them out if they have a cell phone about their spirituality. But if you go from you're not going to die, you're not that body, then who are you? You're an electrical being. Okay, that's under either solid, liquid, or gas, or a plasma. So that comes under plasma. Then what is a plasma? Then all of a sudden you're exploring who you spiritually are in reality, as opposed to the story that you are that body that everybody gets stuck with. It's nonsense.
Well, thank you, Dannion. This has been a masterclass on death, dying, and existence. I really appreciate you. You have a website.
Just Dannion.com. I want everybody who's listening to this to know that I love them with all my freaking heart. And that I appreciate them because I know that you are connected to me and that I am connected to you. And I know this as a fact. A fact. And it's a subtle energy, but it's true. Okay, so knowing that we all came here together and we are light bearers. And we have to think of ourselves in quietly and peacefully praying, to set up structured prayers, ways collectively we move into that spiritual energetic field with purpose, direction, and the highest ideals. So I'm at Dannion.com. I'm changing the site a little, but it's all about the possibility of seeing that you are not that body.
Hi, I'm Paul Perry. I just finished re-releasing a book I wrote with Dr. Raymond Moody in 1990. The book is called Reunions. I want to thank A.J. Parr for helping with the technical aspects of doing this book, doing the layout, and he had great advice on how to do a new cover, which he did, and it's beautiful. And all the technical aspects of reissuing a book and how to use Kindle Direct, which is a wonderful service, and communicating with Kindle Direct. But he was also more than that. He was moral support. He would read through the book, he would fact check, he did proofing for the book, and he made a number of really brilliant suggestions for editorial changes. So I highly recommend working with A.J. Parr, and I'll be doing more books with him in the future. So thank you, A.J. I'll be dealing with you a lot more.
If you're interested in publishing your book in Amazon, contact me, and my publishing team and I will lend you a friendly hand. Send your email to ajparbooks@gmail.com. That's ajparbooks@gmail.com.
Hi, I'm Janet Riley, and I'm the Executive Director of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And I am thrilled to invite you to join us at our annual conference, August 27th to the 31st in Oak Brook, Illinois, just outside Chicago, where we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the field of near-death studies. Join us for 4 inspiring days with more than 100 speakers, including the legendary Life After Life author Raymond Moody, University of Virginia Professor Emeritus Dr. Bruce Grayson, Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell of the Telepathy Tapes, the psychic lawyer Mark Anthony, and spiritual teacher Carolyn Mace, among others. You'll experience healing workshops, including meditation, Reiki, spiritual counseling, and our beloved bookstore with exclusive book signings, surrounded by others who share your interests and your experiences. Come make friends and become part of a warm, caring community that will beckon you to return. Every year, we welcome nearly 1,000 attendees and serve over 20,000 globally through educational resources and support groups. This warm, deeply connected community celebrates life and the life that follows. For nearly 50 years, IANS has represented researchers who study near-death experiences and supported those who have had near-death experiences and experienced related phenomena. Our mission is to educate the world. Our hope is that by supporting research and people, and by communicating far and wide to reporters, podcasters, and through our website and social media, we can normalize discussions about death and the afterlife and help answer the very important question: what happens when we die? Our planet faces unprecedented challenges, and our conference offers a place to recharge, to be informed, to be healed and inspired. Register now at iands.org, that's IANDS.org, and become part of a gathering that informs, heals, and inspires. We hope to see you there.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.